But not for a bourbon per se.
No, indeed. We're going to start that again.
Hello, welcome back to a Single Malt review. Dave and Tim here as we venture forth into bourbon territory once again, but not for a bourbon.
A wee bit bourbon adjacent this time. It is a straight, or rather a Kentucky straight rye whiskey, which I had a wee look about the rules as to what is what, and it looks like it's pretty much exactly the bourbon rules, only the rye has to be 51% of its mash bill, and otherwise it's pretty much the same.
Yeah. And this Woodford Reserve offering, it's 53% rye, is that correct?
So they really blew it up with that one.
We've had good experiences with Woodford Reserve before, and I do like a good rye whiskey. We don't get to try a lot of
Well,
it.
I think you might like / love this one, because this one I have been rather enjoying. I was sort of so incensed by the meagre offering of their 40% by volume version, their 80 proof version, that they especially watered down for us here in the ignorant Australasian market. I went to find some full strength, proper Maker's Mark Woodford Reserve, and I could not find the standard release, but I could find this one. So there went my impulse buying for the day. And
45.2%, 90.4 proof.
Which is the same strength they'll get in the domestic market, which is good. So we're reviewing something relevant this time.
So, age, I'm guessing presumably at least 4 years, much like bourbon.
Well, it only needs to be aged for 2, but
okay.
I'm going to say it's probably aged.
That's a rich,
longer
that
than
is a
that.
rich dark
Longer
colour.
than that.
I like the look of it.
This, like all Woodford Reserve whiskies, is usually aged a little longer, I think, is kind of one of their things, because they always produce a very dark, very woody, oaky expression of bourbon. So I'd hazard between sort of 8, 9, 10 in that bracket there, with maybe a little bit of 12 there to sort of top things up and give it a bit of extra richness and colour. But richness is certainly sort of one of the primary descriptors of this whiskey. It has a hell of a lot going on.
I do like, there's a distinct character to the aroma of rye whiskey, and this has it in abundance. It's somewhere between, hard to say, linseed and flaxseed, a little bit of saffron maybe. It's somewhere with seedy, a little bit floral, a little bit bready.
It's between spice and sort of oil, seedy oil. That linseed's a really good one. It always reminds me of sort of furniture polish, wood polish, for much the same reason, because that always has quite a component of linseed in it normally. But there's the thing the rye always really brings as a grain to whatever you apply it to. You know, rye beers will have this as well, which we encounter here and there in New Zealand when someone's feeling creative. It's this incredibly spicy, almost going on medicinal quality to it. There's this sort of cough medicine-y-esque, Irish moss almost quality to it, and it's really hard to nail down, but as the rye content goes up, so does this difficult but quite compelling, I think, flavour. And this has it in droves. There's a hell of a lot of wood on it as well, and that kind of comes out first, so you might almost mistake it for a bourbon in the first sort of microsecond of nosing it, but
I don't get that so much, but then they have different takes.
There's a huge spiciness with sort of cinnamon and the sort of cinnamon and clove thing going on, but there's almost like a creaminess as well. It's
not as sweet smelling as a comparable strength bourbon, but it's definitely got a smooth and creamy character to it.
It has loads and loads of maple syrup, which is something I associate really strongly with Woodford Reserve.
Much less of the vanilla or caramel.
Woodford and I think maple syrup sort of aroma and taste go kind of hand in hand. That's really it's a distillery that super embraces that particular type of flavour.
And speaking of taste, that is luscious and vibrant. It is full of floral character. It's bursting with that warm, buttery rye bread character.
It's a palate that really goes on a journey, sort of as it marches across the tongue. And I'm going to have another sip just to even adequately describe it. It's very complex. It was always going to be with rye. Rye is a complex flavoured grain, and it makes a complex flavoured whiskey, but this one, more complex than most. Hang on.
There's hot buttery popcorn in there.
It really sort of starts out with the oak characters on the tip of the tongue, and it's quite hard. There's almost a bitter quality to it, sort of a drying bitterness on the tip of the tongue, and very, very wooden, very, very hard, sort of oaky, wet oak and char flavours, huge amounts of char. I don't know what the charring levels they use on the barrels are, but I'd say they're pretty jolly heavy because, yeah, big char in there. And from there, it sort of goes into this really, really spicy region with lots of sort of sweet cinnamon and even a bit of... If you've ever sort of smelled pipe tobacco, kind of comes in these tins and has this remarkably tannic but also aromatic kind of quality to it. There's a lot of that in the mid-palate. And then it sort of turns into this soft, creamy, much sweeter than it begins kind of style, I think.
I'm getting a lot of the smoky charred wood on the finish. That's coming through quite late for me. At first it's got those warm, seedy, popcorny, buttery, bready characters. Then it expands into the spices and the saffron and the cloves and a little bit of citrus.
Yeah,
and then it gives way to the smoke and the timber starts to express itself right at the finish.
It's a really, really complex whiskey, quite magnificently so, which makes it kind of difficult to nail down in a short tasting video, but bear with us, we'll get there. There's black tea in as well. Black tea, almost some lapsang souchong, a little bit of smoke tea element to it. It's got just all sorts of things going on, and that weird interplay between quite hard, bitter, tannic flavours and the sort of sweeter, spicier element. The way they sort of weave in... I'm going to sniff again this episode, I'm sorry. Not the first nor the last time you'll hear I had a cold last time and I have a cold this time because we do these back to back, so it's going to be colds all the way down this week, sorry.
I'm not getting much bitterness here. It is way less sweet than a bourbon of similar strength, but at the same time, it's not making me recoil. It's not.
It'll be how your tongue reacts to tannin, which I think is where the bitterness is coming through. If I'm having something really, really salty, that'll modify my taste such that I taste tannin as a much softer thing. Coming at it completely blank, or just after water, then tannins manifest as sort of bitter spectrum flavours for me. But depending on how your tongue's put together, they'll come to different people in very, very different ways. And something with this much oak in it, and every particle of that colour is tannin, oak tannin. So it will taste very different from different people. Now, just put a wee skerrick of water in here to see if it makes any marked difference.
Yeah, I'm not feeling compelled to add water to this. It's kind of a perfect strength as it is, but just for sake of comparison, I'll do the same. Just bring it down a little. Let's pretend it's had an ice cube in it for a couple of minutes, perhaps. There we go. By no means necessary. This is very eminently drinkable, straight up.
I don't think the water does it a great many favours.
No, that's brought out some bitterness though. It's added a medicinal strain to it.
It makes it a little bit harder, and to me it was a little bit hard to begin with in terms of the sort of angular nature of the taste. So I would leave the water out unless you're having it in a cocktail.
This is a truly fine whiskey on its own, straight out of the bottle.
Speaking of cocktails, rye whiskey, obviously the big mixer, the big mixing American whiskey. This one I think is less mixable than cheaper options. I think this is a really good sipping rye. I think this is so expressive, and so it might be a little pushy if you put it in with a cocktail. It's so spicy already that if it was a cocktail that contained bitters, I think it might become too spicy. There might be just too much cinnamon going on. And if you put it in, say, Manhattan, which is often a target for rye whiskey, I think as long as you were down for a really serious Manhattan experience, I think you would be okay. What I wouldn't use this for would be the other big rye cocktail, which is a Sazerac, which is less commonly made because they've got funny ingredients like absinthe, which you don't tend to have knocking around the house. It's a it's a very, very good cocktail if made properly. One of the slightly harder ones to put together. I would not use this. I think the moment something additionally very, very characterful in a very different way, like say absinthe, they're going to have a war in the glass there, and there's going to be a war with no winners in terms of the flavour you're left with. You want a much lighter bodied, like Sazerac itself, to do that particular cocktail. I think, keep it to pretty stout dark flavoured cocktails, nothing too light body, nothing too sweet. I think I'd draw the line at Manhattan's here.
This is just such a big, expressive flavour. I think you'd be doing a disservice by blending it into a cocktail.
Yeah, sipping is certainly my go-to for this one. Scores, this is a very good whiskey. This is an exceptional rye whiskey. So, rate them in that bracket, which I think contains exactly one other one, the Rittenhouse Rye, which is an incredibly good value whiskey. This is obviously pretty premium. This is your top shelf rye here. It'll cost you a bit more, but in terms of its quality, this is very, very good. Is 91 points for me as a rye whiskey. It could be one of the best ones you can easily attain on the market without going crazy and ending up with something really, really expensive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is an easy 90 from me. It is superb. It's a very good drinking experience. It's one you can think and mull over and get something new out of each subsequent sip.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. No, really stout stuff. And equally important for me, not one you're going to get diddled on with the bottling strength if you're in a different market. So that's got that going for it as well. Rightio, I'm going to once again blow my nose because it's right there. It is right there and it's about to get ugly here. So we will sign off. Slanger, catch you very, very soon.